Greetings and salutations. Welcome again to another episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. David here, and joining us once again is Frankie. It's been a little while since you were on here last.
Yes, sir.
What's new?
Absolutely nothing, to be honest. It's a day in and day out, rinse and repeat type life right now.
Yeah. Nothing new and exciting going on in your life at the moment?
Anime, video games, anybody that follows them, Monster Hunter. I've been really deep into that. So, that would be the newest thing in my life at the moment.
Okay. So, I guess I'm kind of a noob when it comes to Monster Hunter. Never played it. I think I watched you play it a few times, but I feel like I'm not getting it, and I'm probably not the only one. So, what's the deal with Monster Hunter? What's it all about?
Not sure if Capcom's the first one to do this type of thing as far as the hunting creature type dealio. Not like Pokemon where you're going to capture them and train them and stuff. But the whole idea is to go out into these worlds and fight and destroy these monsters and acquire pieces and parts that you essentially hunt and scavenge and tear off of them and break during your battles with them. And you craft really cool gear. So, I've been playing a lot of Worlds in anticipation of Monster Hunter Wilds, so it should be early next year. And Rise. I'm put in about 3 weeks, a combined of about 110-ish hours for both of them. So about 50 each, give or take.
Dang.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I dragged Nick into it. Nick bought Worlds. We've been playing that. I talked my friend Cam into playing Rise with me over the weekend. So really just go out and pick your favorite weapon set, dual blades, long sword, great sword. You got switch axes, gun lances, bow guns, all sorts of cool things. And you go out and as you just tackle the world, man, you just get cool parts. You get their claws, their carapaces, plates, all sorts of webbings and random stuff from different monsters, and you get to craft cool gear with elemental attacks or whatever else. You got thunder, sleep, ice, fire, dragon. I'm just saying. So it's one of those things I didn't really get it until Cam got me back into it, because I did buy it for the Wii U. I had 3 Ultimate or whatever, Tri Ultimate. And I just the idea was still cool to me, but I didn't get the whole mechanics of the game. And so I let it die for a little bit. And Cam's like, well, you got to make sure you do these things. And he kind of walked me through and we played together. And once I understood it and how to play it and what you're looking for and how you grind for parts for gears, made it a whole world different. It made it so much cooler. So, and their character designs are pretty cool, for the monsters and all the stuff you can make. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of time sank. That's what that is.
Yeah, you're that almost kind of reminds me of what's it, Diablo kind of games where you're just constantly getting new stuff, more loot, grind to get more loot, get the better loot so you can kill better bosses and then get better loot from that kind of a thing.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, you go through what they call low rank, or when you're starting, you're not going to know any of this because they don't tell it to you. But then when you get to a certain level with your hunter rank, that's what everything's based off, is your hunter rank. You play through the story, you end up unlocking high rank stuff, and then you realize how easy the low rank stuff is, especially as you unlock high rank gear, high rank armors. You can go through and just wipe all the low rank stuff relatively easy, but then you're getting into the high rank stuff and you're just getting smacked around. They do have movesets that'll stun you or lock you or poison you, put you to sleep and make you vulnerable to attacks. So there's also strategy in that. Like, am I going to use, a thunder weapon or my general go-to weapon? For example, I use dual blades more than anything. You have a non-elemental dual blades that does more damage, but then you have Basarios, who's just rock, like, I don't want to say Tyrannosaurus Rex because it's not accurate. He more or less headbutts you and flings mud at you. But like the mud will dampen your stamina regeneration, and he doesn't really take a lot of hits from dual blades except for on his legs. So you either switch to a heavy axe or like a great sword so that you can actually like break parts off of him. It does a little bit heavier damage. So there's some stratagems in there that you can employ, but it just is one of those things that when you start understanding the mechanics, it makes it that much more fun. And then, of course, you throw in being able to game with friends. Whole different ball game. Playing on the Wii U by myself, trying to figure it out. And, of course, before it was a little bit more mainstream, a lot of the lobbies were locked or they weren't welcoming to noobs. And then you start playing with friends and that opens up. And now Worlds being on the first one that was on like multi-platform consoles instead of just Nintendo, the community shifted a little bit more. I feel like it's a little bit more open. Rise was Nintendo exclusive, but it came to PC and then Xbox and PlayStation. So I feel like there's a shift in that too, but it's been a lot of fun. Like I've been playing with a lot of randos. I don't know how else to say that nicely. It's not bad. It's not connotative, but it's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So yeah.
That's kind of cool. I guess I didn't know that it had a multiplayer component to it. Would you say that really expands the enjoyment out of it versus just playing the single player? Or is the single player kind of like good enough?
I would say the newer ones like Rise and Worlds, the single player solo is good enough. And maybe I'll go back and replay 3 Ultimate and see if I can enjoy it by myself. I don't know. But it was one of those things that was a little bit harder. I mean, the information was still there. You still have like, you open up start and there's a section called Hunter's Notes and it gives you information on the creatures when you encounter them and their weaknesses and breakable parts and, stuff like that. And so, but again, I just didn't know the mechanics. And so maybe it was a me problem more than the game problem. And I'm, everybody wants to jump in and you want a short introduction type of tutorial so you can get into the game, where this game has a lot of depth and it has a lot of mechanics that are at play at all times. And so it's one of those things like if you don't take the time to learn or have someone show you, it probably wouldn't be an enjoyable experience. And again, the newer ones are a lot easier for people to jump into. Like I got Nick into Worlds. I only showed him a couple little things, let him run around at my house. And then next thing you know, he's got it and we're playing together. So Rise is the newest iteration. That one's probably the easiest overall. I will say it's still challenging as heck because I got wiped like 3 times yesterday. But the mechanics are a lot easier. They're a little bit more explained. And even though they're very tough bosses and monsters, I would say that it's more user-friendly in that respect. So it's been one of those things, man. If I can talk everybody into playing, I would.
Yeah. I've always been kind of intrigued by Monster Hunter over the years, but it's one of those things like, at this point in time, it seems like if I get into it, I'll probably like play it for a little bit and then just get bored of it and dump it. So
it's one of those things. You get a crew. So it's all downhill from there, David. You'll be sucked in. Because like I said, if you're not one of those people who will delve into the mechanics and read some of the lore and some of that minute, intricate stuff to really flesh it out, you're not gonna, I don't think that you'll get involved. But having someone be like, oh, did you know you could do this? Or make sure you do these things because it helps you out. And then you realize that there are expanded parts of the mechanics that you're missing. And you're like, oh, snap, I could do all of this. And then you start getting really into it. And I think that's one of those things that helped me get back into it and really enjoy it, because I did like it a lot, especially once I learned more about it. There was a free-to-play game called Dauntless. I don't know if it's still active or not. And it was cool. They have cool character designs. They have a lot of flashy, in-your-face attacks and effects. But it's missing a lot of that depth that Monster Hunter naturally comes with, because that is its wheelhouse. That's literally all they do. And so you have all the intricacies. You go out and you have little mini quests or like sub quests that you're doing while you're doing some of these hunts, and you unlock things to. They have the botanical researcher, right? He helps you cultivate, herbs and mushrooms and bugs and stuff. But you can use those bugs, for example, like a thunder bug, to create a thunder trap, and you can shock the creature when it's low enough health to then use a tranq bomb to like capture it. Worlds is kind of cool because there's like a spot in the main town where you see what you captured, which I think helps set it apart, because it's that instant gratification, right? So to speak. You get to see what you've done versus you have to fight the same monster 4 times to get enough parts to craft the sword that you've been gunning for, or the gear that you want, and getting the bonuses from having a complete set type deal. So a lot of fun though, man. It's a time sink, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, if it's compatible with Apple Silicon, then I might have to give it a go.
I don't actually know that one, but I would be intrigued to look into it because it is a fun game.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of games I can play on my laptop, which is just as well, because I don't really play all the games that I can play on my laptop anyway. But it's always kind of one of those things where it's like, there's the one game, oh, I want to play that. And then it's like, is it compatible? No.
I will tell you what is compatible, though. Almost all Blizzard games, including StarCraft 2.
Oh, StarCraft 2.
StarCraft 2. Actually, they even did an update that StarCraft 1 plays on there. StarCraft is 10 out of 10.
Really?
Yes. And if you play through the story is relatively easy. It does get more challenging as you get through, but holy cow, man, the multiplayer, there are some people that are like top tier on that game. And it is one of those games that is in esports and has competitiveness. I had a friend show me a while back pretty much his strategy, and I thought I was decent because I love RTS, real-time strategy games. Blew me out of the water, was twice as far, had twice as many units, crushed me, and he showed me the tricks to kind of get a little bit better. But yeah, that does play on Mac.
Oh yeah, I might have to look into that. I never actually played RTS games growing up because I was always a console player, and RTSs never made an appearance on console outside of once in a blue moon.
Yeah, and they're not good on console.
But I might have to give it a go now because I did. Jake and Matt managed to get me playing Age of Empires. With them for a little bit.
Classically good game.
And that was pretty fun. So yeah, when I get more into I'm gonna sink some time into gaming mood, I might go down that RTS rabbit hole a little bit.
That's a good starting point to jump off into the deep end.
Yeah, and speaking of gaming, I did just get a new SSD, so I finally have enough storage space where I could download what's it called? I literally just lost the name of it.
Story of my life, happens to me all the time.
The big RPG that came out a couple years ago.
Skyrim, Dragon Age.
It's like D&D based.
Oh, Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. I was interested in playing Baldur's Gate because it's one of the few like AAA games, like new AAA games that's Apple Silicon compatible. But
really?
It's
not
like
know that.
150 gigabytes or whatever.
Yeah, it is a massive game. To be
And
fair, though, it is a very good fleshed out game. And having played D&D and having played a ton of RPGs, it has skill checks and a D20 dice that rolls. It's the coolest animation ever, especially if you play D&D or have ever played. It's just that anticipation of, is this going to be freaking just crap, or is it going to be like top tier, or are you going to just barely make your skill check?
yeah, I was definitely excited about that. So, but given that I am, was not looking to load up my hard drive with a bunch of large games like that, I did not go for the one with the laptop with a large hard drive. I thought, oh yeah, I'm just getting this for recording and stuff, and I'm gonna be using like SD cards and whatnot mostly for storing stuff. So all I need is 500 gigs, right?
Just rookie mistake. I'll tell you
Yeah,
right now.
Baldur's Gate 3 is not going to do very good with that. But we've gotten to the point in the podcast where just SD cards are no longer enough storage space. We have like a pretty hefty backlog of episodes now.
Dang.
So now I invested in a terabyte SSD. So now that I have more storage,
you need like 4 terabytes minimum.
now that I have more storage, I think I might jump into that. But yeah, obviously, I've been doing more video editing since Jake's been gone, because he normally handles that.
Right.
So I've been doing more video editing, and so now with that, I'm probably gonna have to spring for another SSD at some point, because
or maybe a Windows-based desktop.
Maybe, I don't know. I like for creative purposes, I like Mac OS. I like how it operates, and like as far as power to cost to portability ratio, the Silicon MacBooks kind of really hit the sweet spot.
I will say that Mac is good in the sense that it's turnkey. You can take it out of the box. Just about anybody can use it. And there are things that professionals would use that are either baked in or easy to acquire and work really well. But as someone who's rather tech savvy and has built all his own computers, even if you don't want Windows, there is a butt ton of Linux distributions. If I wasn't going to have Windows, I'd have Linux. And if you wanted to do, it's so customizable. It doesn't even matter which distro, because there's main kernel distributions that use GNOME and stuff like that. And I don't want to go in a deep rabbit hole on just all that stuff, but they have purpose-built distributions that are good for audio video editing. They have purpose-built ones that are secure, cybersecurity focused and have built-in stuff, and like Parrot Linux, right? That's specifically for cybersecurity, has a bunch of tools already built in. But Linux is really cool. As long as you know what type of distribution you have, you literally can get or download anything for it. And it's open source. So you have people that put a lot of passion into what they're doing. So you're not getting quick money grabs trash. Not that those don't exist, don't get me wrong. But you know what I mean? There's a lot of passionate people behind Linux and a supportive community and stuff like that. So if I wasn't going to have Windows, which I do, I would then have Linux. And you could get Steam OS, which is essentially what's on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, it's a Linux-based operating system. Sir. And it basically uses, what's it called? Proton for compatibility.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually did mess around with Linux a little bit. There's a distro that's, it hasn't been, it's like a variant of, what's the distro called? Fedora. It's a variant of Fedora that's being developed for Apple Silicon. So I took a chance. I downloaded it, installed it, messed around with it, just to see what it was all about. But I'm definitely a noob when it comes to Linux. The unfortunate thing about my Linux saga is that it came to a rather abrupt end in that I installed it, booted it up, it was working fine, and then I went to update all the packages so I could start installing the software and applications I wanted
Right.
to use on Linux, and well, it crashed. And like I don't mean it just crashed. I mean like I restarted it, got back to the boot menu, selected Linux once more, and it just loaded into a black screen. And I did some research and found out that apparently there's a sort of a bug in this particular release of Linux where they don't want you to update using the command line the first time around. They want you to use the
GUI
updater the first time around. And I was like, it's Linux. You got to use the command line.
Command line is king in Linux. That is for sure. I took a Linux class, Linux 1, when I was doing my IT stuff, and they literally, the first half of the class is literally navigating with the command line, which was really cool. By the way, VMware or some sort of virtual box before you decide to crash everything. But he literally, the teacher took you through installing, it's like 100 megabytes. Like it was Debian, right? One of the distros, and it only installs the command line. Then he walks you through on how to, because normally you take out Ubuntu or Fedora, right? And it pretty much operates like Windows or Mac. Like it has a GUI, it has a graphical user interface. And you go through that, but he literally takes you through how to install it from a flash drive or a disk in the VM. And then, by the way, that's virtual machine in case you don't know what that is. And not you, David. I would assume you do, but the listeners. And you have to install components and how to type in the correct commands. And like I said, different distros have different packages, and that's pretty much their repository and how they use. So you have slightly different command lines, which make sure you do your research so you can input correct command lines. But how to install those pieces. And that's why Debian was so cool, because it's one of those bare bones that you can take from command line to graphical to all the add-ins and pieces, and it's cool. And then you have, Ubuntu, which is probably one of the most user-friendly as far as a Windows user, because you can install it and download Proton and Steam on there. They even actually have a Ubuntu Steambox distro, which has all that stuff already installed, and the latest drivers for like NVIDIA and AMD, so you can kind of get rolling out the gate without something like SteamOS, which I think is an Arch-based Linux, another distro. I could be wrong, but Windows has started integrating Linux into their subsystems, and you can actually do Linux command prompts in... they don't call it command prompt. It's I forgot what it's called. I actually use it just to do basic computer maintenance.
Yeah, Windows calls it something different.
Yeah, once they started with the Linux integration, it almost is like PowerShell, which was their like real techie version to write scripts and do command prompts, but. Shoot, I can't think of what it's called. Horrible. I'm letting everybody down. Sorry, guys. But anyways, they integrated it, and it operates a little bit more like the Linux command line.
Okay, that's interesting.
So
yeah, I've done a little bit of command line stuff. just because of a few things. And so for me, it was actually kind of like not too difficult to get into Linux. Well, while it was working, at least. It wasn't too difficult to get into Linux because I guess Mac OS and Linux are both Unix-based operating systems, so their command lines are like how they're structured and stuff are very similar and identical in certain cases.
Well, I mean, they're like cousins. They started out at the same spot at one point in time and kind of verged down their own paths.
Yeah. But yeah, the command line stuff is pretty fun. Yeah, I had to start learning it because I found this cool project on Discord where people made a multiplayer version of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, like for the Super Nintendo.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
So they made so they took an existing emulator, it's called BSNES, and they made a custom version of it which can run scripts. And so basically, you load up a Zelda ROM into this emulator and you run the script, and it pops up a little like map of the game world, not the kind of the mode 7 like looking out across it map that the game has internally, but it's just like a flat looking at it from the map, and it shows your location, and you can connect to servers and actually play the game with other people. And like you can play it like just have two people in the world and just kind of go through and do stuff, or you can like turn it into a game, like, you know, like we're gonna race through to see who can complete the game the fastest. They have things like modes that they like these existed before that. They exist for a lot of games, but they're called like randomizers.
Okay.
So it's basically it scrambles up all the stuff in the game. So like, you know, you might go to the first temple, and instead of getting the bow and arrow, you'll get like, you know, the hammer or something.
Game breaking, nice.
And so yeah, you can do like, so with with being able to play the game multiplayer, this sort of adds a whole new dimension to that, the craziness of randomizer. So you got all sorts of things you can do with it, and it's quite fun. And I was trying to figure out how to host a server on my computer, and I even had to do some light coding, which I had never done before. So that was kind of an experience. I basically had to compile like the server from scratch. Like I couldn't just download the server program. It was like the code was on GitHub, and I had to download the code and then compile it myself.
That's actually really cool because I also took programming 1 and 2. So that's really cool. And not to the same level, but I had a Power World server and an Enshrouded server when I was playing both of those. So
nice.
Both of them, when you host them, you have to go in and edit the init file. And so you have to go in and read the code. And if you don't, the tutorial is relatively easy for Power World, but Enshrouded was not. It took me a while to get the server to run, and it was the whatever early access version that we had, it wasn't set up correctly, and I wasn't adjusting the settings correctly. And so when you go through and read line by line, it helps to be able to write and compile basic coding because it lets you spot those things. So good job.
Yeah. Since we've wandered into the topic of gaming in general, is there any, besides Monster Hunter, is there any games that have been you've been spending time on as of late?
No.
So-
Just kidding. Yeah, it's mostly been Monster Hunter in my world at the moment. But anybody that knows me knows that I am obsessed with Dragon Ball. I do like mythological things as well, and I think it's like 15th century mythology book written by some Chinese dude. I really don't know his name. But The Adventures of the Monkey King Wukong.
Oh yeah. Okay. I know.
Little bit of a stretch, but I do. That is what Goku and Dragon Ball is loosely based off of. But Black Myth Wukong, Souls-esque type game, but with cool Chinese mythology, and you are the Monkey King with his cool staff, and you get to take on these hard battles. I have been watching and waiting since they announced it. I want to say like 4 years ago, and literally when it got announced at the game show, it immediately got like super hyped, and the devs had to hire a bunch of people to be able to translate it and port it to other systems because it was only going to be in China and it was only supposed to be on PC, and that is not the case. So it's been a development cycle. And for those who have Xbox or were hoping to get it on Game Pass, suck at Trebek because it's not happening. And it has to do with, if you do a little research, something with your guys' security and privacy stuff that Microsoft implements. So it has nothing to do with system requirements. You buy it on Steam, you can have it. You get it on PlayStation, you can have it. I'm just saying. I'm getting it on PS5, and I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it because I've been watching this thing unfold for a few years now, and I am ecstatic. And they updated it from Unreal Engine 4 when they first announced it to the 5.3 or whatever the latest version is. So it's going to look beautiful, and it's going to be amazing. And the boss designs are insane. The battles look great. I mean, I watched it when they were doing like Chinese with subtitles, and even that was cool as shit. So,
What's it called again?
Wukong, Black Myth Wukong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is it kind of based on that same story that inspired Dragon Ball?
It is based off of Wukong in his travels. I don't think it's based directly on like the one-to-one of the 15th century novel that kind of inspired all of that, but it's supposed to be based on that character and his travels through the world and adventuring and encountering these intensely huge battles that are difficult. Like there was one, it was like a giant like ogre looking dude. Another one was like a thunder dragon. They had like a werewolf looking thing. Just look into it. Just look into it. I'm not doing it any justice by any means, and the visuals definitely help add to what you're perceiving. My story is bad. Sorry, guys.
Speaking about games set in Asia, have you heard about the big hoo-ha that happened with the latest Assassin's Creed?
Assassin's Creed almost feels like when people say Call of Duty to me, I just tune it out.
Oh yeah. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed since the first one, I think. So yeah, I'm way out of the loop when it comes to actually playing the games. But this one was kind of interesting because if you don't know, Assassin's Creed, each game is like set in a specific historical era, and the idea is your character is like part of this sort of organization that spans history, and continues to the modern day and all that. So this newest one, I can't remember if it actually has released. I'm that out of the loop when it comes to a lot of gaming stuff, but it's set in feudal Japan.
Mirage. Okay, I do know a little bit about this. And the running joke was Ghost of Tsushima, been there, done that type thing. Because Ghost of Tsushima is what they call a spaghetti western to old Japanese samurai type stuff. Open world, you get climbing, you get all the cool stuff. And it's like, I don't know, been there, done that. I'm not excited for it. Had Ghost of Tsushima never been released, I probably would be excited for the first time in a while for Assassin's Creed. but they are a lot of rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
and
this from what I've seen of it, it really does seem like it's kind of Ubisoft's trying to like cash in on that Ghost of Tsushima kind of thing, but it's really weird too that it's got this like, I don't know what's going on, but they like decided to, because normally in Assassin's Creed you're not an actual historical character, you're like a nobody, because this
Damon, whatever his name is,
because this this the creed, as they call it, spans time, and it's sits in the shadows of history. So like, even though you encounter plenty of famous historical characters in Assassin's Creed games, you don't actually play as any of them. You're just some nobody, but you're part of the creed. So this one, I don't know if they wanted to just be like, say like, look how progressive we are. I don't know what the reasoning was, but they decided to break that, and you actually play as a historical figure, but the twist is it's a historical figure that is very little is known about.
So they could do what they want with him.
And essentially what they did is, I'll get it out of the way. It's a black guy who rose to an impressively high rank in the court of a certain shogun, relative to existing in feudal, like black people in feudal Japan was like almost unheard of, and this guy reportedly, as much as we understand about him, apparently gained quite a bit of favor with a certain shogun, but what Ubisoft has done, they've decided to kind of go off on this, like basically turn him, he was like the Black Samurai, kind of a thing, which is cool. It was a cool idea, don't get me wrong, but then they like, as they're unveiling this game to the world, they're like, oh yeah, and this game is like, we researched this topic thoroughly, and like, like the history presented in this game is like, you could be educated on history by playing this game. So it's just like, people have been calling them out for that, because obviously you can't embellish a character who we barely know anything about and make him out to be something that we're not even sure that he was, and also have your game be like, oh yeah, we spent so much time researching it, and it's so historically accurate down to the most minute detail, and people are calling that out. And then of course, because of the era that we live in, you have accusations of racism being thrown around and all that. So it's just it's really bizarre. I wouldn't like I'm kind of like you. Assassin's Creed games, like, not even a blip on my radar, but I just thought this particular one was just really weird controversy,
Yeah, that's kind of been Ubisoft's like guitar string for a while. They've been missing the mark, honestly, man. They strum all the wrong chords. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. Although they do have the Anno series and the Age of Discovery, if you're old enough to have played through that, but city builder management type S game, those are good. You don't have to worry about those.
Yeah.
And they don't release them as often. And the thing that bugs me is, even if you have rotating teams, or like Call of Duty where you have a completely different developer rotating it to keep it feel fresh, like you also have to have core mechanics and the same feel to it so people know that it's the same game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, every year is not a good thing. Like, no. I same with, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole. Microtransactions, free to play games, all free to play anything should just be freaking wiped out. And I am a person who's like, oh, I should be able to play this for free, but at the same token, like, those devs have to make money, and they make them through microtransactions, which tend to piss people off because they are poorly executed. And now with like the FTC and stuff like that stepping in on behalf of us as the users, the end user, right? They also have protection. So now they really can only be like skins and stuff. And although people would like to do them and they are licensed and franchised, and it's like, for me, I don't even play Fortnite, but it was cool that my son had Goku and he could do Kamehameha. That close to being tempted to want to play it just so I could be Goku. But I refrained because it's still Fortnite and it's still a free to play game. And just, I know so many people harp on games used to be $49.99 and then they were $59.99 and they've been $69.99 for a long time here in the US anyways. And within current gen, when it was new gen, everybody was worried about the $10 hike in price. I will pay $80 for a game if it's good, if it's worth the amount of money and you can put time into it, like Monster Hunter. All these plugs I'm not being paid for, Capcom, come on. But you know what I mean? Like, if you make a good game, you put your passion into it, it justifies those asking prices. But then you have a game that comes out every year. I don't want to fork out $70 every year for a game that's only slightly different. Like, I play the story mode in Call of Duty, but nobody else does, right? You play it to play multiplayer and zombies and whatever. Like, Battle Pass is the new little microtransaction that they sneak in there, and it's crap. Like, you unlock things a little bit faster and you get some cool skins. Like,
yeah, that's the problem with a lot of AAA games nowadays, is they're basically cashing in on their name, and they're just not good anymore.
No, they really aren't.
Call of Duty was fun. I think
Call of Duty 3.
Modern Warfare, like the original Modern Warfare. Call of Duty. Did I play 3?
I think Call of Duty 3.
Was that the one on the 360?
Yep, it was the first one with multiplayer. That one was
that
good.
one was fun. Yes, I remember that one being fun. The story mode in that one was cool too.
Battlefield's gone downhill. There's a whole list of them, right? But like Battlefield Bad Company 2 was one of those first games, along with I think it was Black on the original Xbox. But like, you launch a grenade and the wall blows out. Like when physics was first coming out on NVIDIA and they were trying to push it to console, like that was cool. They pushed the boundaries. The story was good. Like, it kept you there. But then they got to the point where they're like, okay, Medal of Honor phased out altogether. They didn't even want to compete anymore. But like, you know what I mean? You can keep people enticed and you don't have to come out. Monster Hunter Worlds came out, do not quote me, like 3 to 5 years ago. Like, it's a good chunk of time, right? And then Rise came out 2 years ago, almost 3, I think, on Switch. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago on all the other platforms. But like, now they're coming out with Wilds, hopefully next year, early next year. So Capcom, sponsor me. But you know what I mean? Like, that's a good cycle. It's not every year. You're not going to be bored with it. You have time to flesh out all the little stuff and get to the nitty gritty and really get your money's worth for a game. And I mean, dang, there's so many good games that have just been ruined by stuff like that.
And you feel like Monster Hunter hasn't really fallen prey to the modern AAA game trap, where each one is just kind of like a slight revision of the one before. You feel like when a new Monster Hunter game comes out, it's like actually a new Monster Hunter game.
Yeah, they incorporate some of the old monsters so that you get that feel and vibe from them to really kind of keep their trademark to it all. But they add features. I mean, you go from, let's see, like I played 3 Ultimate on the Wii U, couldn't figure it out, right? And then the next one I played was Worlds on console, and it was the same and also at the same time completely different. And there was 4 in generations, but I didn't have 3DS, so maybe that was my problem. I just didn't have enough of it in my face. But it, like, I bought Worlds, I played the crap out of it, and then when Rise was ready to be released a few years later, like, it had all that and stuff in there. And don't get me wrong, they still do DLCs, and I really wish they would just call them expansions, because that's my favorite way to call them, and I'm old. But like Worlds had Iceborne, whole new area, whole new monsters. Rise has Sunbreak, whole new world, whole new areas, whole new gear, whole new. But there's things in between to keep a game fresh too, right? They add like monster packs or gear packs, and don't get me wrong, they do have their, but it's implemented. It's not in your face. It's not a part of the mechanic of the game itself. Like they go, hey, we released all this new gear, skins, layered. They call them layered equipment, by the way. But it's an option, and it's there in the PlayStation Store, Steam, wherever you're playing this game, right? And the Switch, eStore, whatever the heck they call it. But Call of Duty, like Battle Pass pops up every time you enter or leave a game.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's force fed to you. And they don't do that Monster Hunter. Like you get a little square, it says Sun Breaks Out now if you're playing like Monster Hunter Rise right in the corner. And there is an option to go straight to the eStore from whatever platform you're playing from, but that's really it. You kind of go out the rest of the game. I played a game and I saw some guy had some cool weapon. I looked up. It was one of the layered sets that you could purchase. It was like $1.99. Also not a crazy price for just a reskin of a gear. But it's not force fed to you. And I think that's the biggest difference. Charge me $70, $80. I don't care. But the game mechanics and the core play and the amount of play you can get out of that game is more than worth it.
Yeah. The price of games is a really interesting topic to me because I think we've been kind of spoiled by game prices for a while now, I think.
They've held pretty solid at their standard price for more than a decade. It has not kept up with inflation by any means, even through, 2008, the housing market crash and recession there. Like they held pretty strong at $59.99 all the way through current gen. And, with PS4 and Xbox One S and X and whatever, those ones, you did see certain game companies were like, no, we can't afford to run games. And so $69.99 for especially a AAA is pretty standard. But honestly, if you kept up with inflation, games should be like $100 a piece, which does suck. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah. But that's a inflation issue, not a price of games issue.
Right. But if games are good, then they justify the price. I mean, you think back to the 90s when the Famicom, or as we like to call it here, it's the Super Nintendo, right? Or the NES, sorry. I think it released for like $300, which would have been like $900 today.
Seriously?
It would have been a ridiculous amount of money. But it was something like the whole family got into. Like you played Mario, you played Donkey Kong, and you can justify those exorbitant prices if the quality is there.
Yeah, that was like that was a big deal. That was like the main innovation that Nintendo brought to the world of gaming was quality, because you had Atari was the king of gaming before Nintendo, but they would just license they would just license it out to anybody, and you had basically the whole market crashed, and then Nintendo stepped in and was like, okay, we're going to do gaming different. And I think, what did they call it? They had a phrase for it, Nintendo polish, for a while.
Yeah.
It was, and I find it really interesting too, the whole like how Nintendo came to the position that it was, is they had to like, almost like break off of the gaming industry in order to be able to do what they did. Like Famicom, it's like family computer just mashed into one word. And basically, like they were very careful not to market the NES as a video game console. It was like it was a toy, or it was a family computer that you could. It was an entertainment device. It wasn't a video game console, because video games had become basically a dirty word by that point.
Right. Where all the cool kids hung out at the arcades in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, it had a negative stigma to it. But It's one of those things like Nintendo has presented itself as like a family company, and we'll put a pin in this and we can bring this back up later, but there's a cool little docuseries by Media Magnates that goes over how Nintendo came to even be. They actually used to make playing cards, and not by reputable people way back when, but not where I was going with that. But and the entire time they've done video games in the almost 50 years or something like that, they've had like one negative year on their books, and it's because they have marketed themselves so well. I mean, Wii was one of the top grossing consoles of all time, right behind the PS2. And the Wii U was, I enjoyed it, but everybody else's opinion was it was trash. Sold out. Switch sold out. You know what I mean? They've done really well, and like you said, the Nintendo polish on there. If it's first party Nintendo, it is a quality game every single time, and it runs the way it's designed on their consoles, and everybody loves them. I mean, I bought the last like 4 newest Mario games, loved all of them, and Nintendo never has freaking sales on their own first party stuff. And you know what? I paid $60 goddamn dollars every time because they're worth it, to be honest. And some of them were a little bit shorter, but I enjoyed every penny I got out of it. So to me, it was justifiable. You know what I mean?
And it's really funny too. The last few console generations, Nintendo consoles have been severely underpowered relative to their competitors. But what's really interesting is they always manage to make great looking games regardless of the limitations of their hardware. Like even back to the Wii, like the Wii was criminally underpowered compared to the 360 and the PS3, but like the Super Mario Galaxy games, they've
held up pretty well.
Legitimately good looking games, other than not being in HD. Right. They're legitimately good looking games. And then nowadays the Switch is getting a little long in the tooth. Its hardware is definitely showing its age, but you had Tears of the Kingdom come out a couple years ago, or whenever it came out, and that's genuinely a good-looking game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Tears of the Kingdom, God, what was that, like a year or 2 ago, I think?
Something like that.
It's not super old, but the first part, because that's a continuation of the Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Also looked fantastic on the Switch when it came out. I mean, it still looks good. And that's the art direction they went with, and, playing to your strengths. But like some developers, some consoles, they don't really do that. And outside of, I'm a PlayStation fanboy, so it's going to come off that way. PlayStation, all their first party stuff is just top tier. God of War, the writing in it, the cinematics, the gameplay, Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch, right? Like Insomnia, all those games, you really put your money behind it and you show that you care about the products that you're putting out there. People will buy them. And that's the thing. I mean, Microsoft's been banking off Halo since the Xbox days, and they just got that from Bungie. They didn't even make it them damn selves.
Yeah. Microsoft has definitely mishandled Halo. It's not like the glory days.
No,
like I remember, like back when I used to play Halo 2, I didn't even have the internet, so I didn't even play multiplayer other than like
LAN parties,
basically. But I still put a lot of hours into the game just because it was so good, and I enjoyed the mechanics of it, the world, everything about it. And then so when Halo 3 came out, I was super excited. Reach and 4, still excited for, even though they weren't quite up to this. They didn't ultimately.
3 was the last good one. I'm just gonna be honest.
But then after 4 and Reach, it was just like, man, it's like something. Like there was had to have been some kind of like some kind of change that took place, some kind of restructuring, because I don't think there was. I think every Halo game since 4 has been pretty much Pretty garbagey.
Yeah, it's a 343 studio. And it's not saying that they're not talented developers or coders and designers. It's just, I'm sure it's Microsoft's hands in it more than anything, but they ruined the formula. And 5, they added RPG elements like, let's go back to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, right? They just, elements that weren't there before that don't need to be there, but they're adding them because, the top genre is RPG or, needs to have DLC or needs to have, and it's like, no, build a product that you're proud of. Build a product that you want people to be playing.
Yeah.
And put that dedication into it and make sure the mechanics aren't broken. Make sure, it's as polished as it can be. Like, we live in an era that things can be updated at a later date in time, especially with strict, deadlines and release dates. But shoot high and miss the mark versus shoot low and then definitely don't hit shit. Like
I know, right?
That stuff sucks, man. It lets you down. Then that's when you get the people that are pissed off about a $10 price hike because you're releasing crap. That's what it is. PlayStation said Ghost of Tsushima 2 is now going to be one of the first games starting at new standard pricing at $80. Nobody's going to bat an eye because Ghost of Tsushima is polished. It's beautiful. It's good. The team has a long track record, right? Insomnia, you have Sucker Punch Studios, Guerrilla, like all them. They have good games and they've had continuous good games, and it's something they put a lot of dedication into. Nintendo, right? Pretty much anything Nintendo releases, people are hyped for. It doesn't even Animal Crossing. I like, those little city life builders where you're ranching or whatever. They're good waste of time doing absolutely nothing, but it is a boring ass game, I'm gonna be honest. But I was hyped for it. And it is a good quality game. All the mechanics are there. Everything functions like it's supposed to. I mean, you can only sit and run around an island and farm for so damn long, but it is a good game and it looks really good on the hardware. And if you have friends that are playing it, you can like do all the stuff together. So like I didn't have anybody else that was playing with me, so maybe that was my problem. But
yeah,
it is a good game. It's well polished. It's all the mechanics work and function as they're intended. It is a good game.
Yeah. Yeah, Microsoft is definitely has some soul searching to do.
Especially for a big company like it is. You got indie developers, you give them a little bit of leeway, but you have someone established like Microsoft and their hand in the video game world for, 2.5 decades? Like, you should have had it figured out at this point in time, being as big as you are.
Yeah. There's actually, I heard some rumors that they were like they were going to move towards like, they were going to do like a kind of what Sega did and get out of the console game completely and just start licensing their properties to other console makers, which is would be kind of interesting if they did that. Imagine like, Halo is now like on PlayStation,
Yeah. For a while there was some sort of rumors about a deal with Switch being able to do the Xbox Game Cloud or something like that. Nothing ever came of that. As an official Microsoft spokesperson, I can neither confirm nor deny any of these accusations.
Yeah, I kind of liked, they were doing some cool things with Game Pass, but I feel like Game Pass, as they've structured it, isn't a very sustainable thing. Like, I like their cloud gaming thing that they were trying, because I had a Game Pass subscription for a little while, and
that way you could play games on your Mac.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It ceased to be cool when the Wi-Fi connection dropped for some reason, because then every game was a laggy mess, even if my hardware should have no problem running it.
Right. I had an Xbox One X for a while, and the streaming stuff never worked like it was supposed to, and I have Comcast, which should be pretty damn reliable for streaming anything, and it didn't. Not that PlayStation doesn't have its own faults, but I feel like it ran quite a bit smoother when you're streaming games. And the idea behind Game Pass was really cool and innovative. And I think, though, that it added something similar to the world of microtransactions. You took money out of the pockets of the developers, not saying that they didn't make good money, but they miss those opportunities. But it does help, say, for example, a smaller developing studio that would otherwise not have reached as many people. Maybe they wouldn't have made as much money. So like you can see benefits that might have had an effect, but I think like in case you don't follow them or hear, they had a restructure of kind of their Game Pass and a price increase, and there's like a basic tier essentially that doesn't include day one games, and people are in uproar because that's literally been their shtick for the last like 4 years, longer. I don't know, however long Game Pass has been going on. And so people are pissed off about that. And that's where I think that it's going to turn to another Microsoft money grab, which sucks because Phil Spencer has been such a for the gamer type person for as long as I've had an Xbox and followed him through Xbox One 360 eras. And he came into being CEO, but it's just like, it's one of those turns that you just see, and it's not a very bright tunnel.
Yeah. For a while, like, it seems like the glory days of Microsoft are kind of coming into an end because, you know, Xbox used to have, they had Gears of War, they had Halo, but Bungie since moved on, and Microsoft retained Halo, but they totally bungled it. And Gears of War, I don't think, turned into a really money-making franchise. And
I think that has to do with age, though. I'm going to be fair, because as a teenager, as like a 12, 13-year-old boy, grinding up people with your little gun chainsaw was cool as hell. And as an adult, I don't really care. I like shooting, but the story wasn't there. It was more of like a in-your-face, like, watch me chop someone up.
yeah.
Which they could have done so much more with that. And they do have a new Fable out or coming out. Deal.
I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, and I saw the trailer and it looks cool, but Lionhead Studios was the people that made that before, and they were a really great studio who went bust way back when. They did the Black and White 1 and 2, also great, like city management God simulator games back in the day. But you have them trying to revive these things or continue these things because they own the IP, and it's just like, don't do it if you're going to mess it up. Because I'm going to be really mad. And I know that, say, someone like my kids might really love it, but as someone who's been there for damn near 3 decades, like, don't mess it up, man. I'll buy the next one even as an adult, but don't mess it up.
Yeah. And you know what's really funny to me, too, is they had a really good thing going with MCU. MCU. Why did I say MCU? I meant MCC, there we go. I confuse those two things. MCC, the Master Chief Collection. Yep. Like, that was basically like what the Halo players were hoping and clamoring for. And honestly, they should have come up with a way to expand the things that was doing right, like, and then interject some new excitement into it, you know. But instead what happened is it just became kind of, all right, well, we're, adding, this little minor update here, this little minor update here, oh, now you can, do this mode, and now you can do this mode. And, eventually the excitement subsided and it no longer became profitable, so they ceased development on it. Right. So now MCC is just the way it is. But I feel like the potential was there to, capture something almost akin to, like Fortnite, how it's kind of like people are invested in it because, like, the game continually sort of adds new things, reinvents itself.
Games as a service is not it's not viable 95% of the time. There are outliers, right? Fortnite, you've got Roblox still manages to keep kids playing, and maybe it's just the bright colors and flashing stuff. But games as a service, so many developers have dumped money and development into games that just utterly fail, and it's developers going, well, this is the new way. Everything's going to be streaming, so get over here, get this, and we can continually push updates. And it's like, yeah, you say that, but it's because you want to microtransaction the hell out of me. It's not because you want to push a really good game and keep it good. You want to be able to sell me something every day, all the time, every time I log in. There's a difference, you know. This is why I'm like, charge me $100. I will buy the game if it is good. I will play the shit out of that game if it is good. I'm not buying all your extra crap.
Yeah, that's kind of the really sad thing is with the rise of streaming services and games as a service, microtransactions, stuff like that, these companies are really like, we want to like nickel and dime the customer because that repeated income is where it's at.
Oh yeah, they make way more money. You see games that do thrive on mobile platforms is a perfect example, right? Like something like, man, I don't play any mobile games, to be honest. I avoid them because I know they're dangerous. Like Ebony, that's the one you see the commercial for all the time, right? It's because they get tons of people. You run out of energy for the day or whatever it is. I don't know. And so it's like, oh, 99 cents, boost your energy so you can keep playing. And someone's like, oh, 99 cents isn't that big of a deal. But you do that 3 times in one day times however many people are playing the damn game. They've made $3 million in one day. Like it is a more lucrative process.
Yeah.
But the overall end user experience is that much more worse.
Yeah. And that's really the thing is, you know, all these companies are jumping on this business model, but what they don't realize is it's not sustainable. At a certain point, the customers are going to be like, okay, we've had enough, no more of this.
Right.
And then these companies are going to be left with, holding the bag for all the money they sunk into this stuff with nothing to show for it.
I don't remember what video I watched, but there was this one video on YouTube that was like pretty much like successful like mobile businesses are, you literally design a game as cheap as possible, add in microtransactions and already start your development on your next game because 6 months, a year later, that game has it's no longer making the money and you don't want to start losing money by continually to update it. So you push the next new one and so on and so forth. And a lot of companies make good money just pushing off shit and then moving on to the next one. And I mean, even in, it's not quite the same, but on Steam, right? You see early access games, developers charge you $30-$40, which is cool for an early access game. You're one of the first people that do it and they, show you a roadmap that has all these updates and cool features they're going to add, and they do the first 2 updates and they move on. And then that developer, either goes bust because they didn't make enough money, but they move on. They do the same thing. I think the people that did Last Oasis and Osiris, I think it's the same developer, and do not quote me because I may be 100% wrong, but they pretty much put out an early access game, got as much sales out of it, and then let it die. It sucks because like those games have those potentials and they definitely have those followings. Like if you put the right focus on it, you could have made the same amount of money without leaving trash behind. Then you're that much more reputable. Someone sees your name, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go back to PlayStation and Nintendo. You see something from one of their, like Nintendo is Nintendo, but like PlayStation has first party studios like Gorilla and Sucker Punch. You see their name on something, and not that they haven't ever made bad games, but you trust that what they're going to put out is a damn good game and all their hype is well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks. I mean, there's a lot of developers out there. There's a lot of teams out there from different backgrounds, countries, etc. But have some damn pride. That's where you're going to make your money, because I'm not even an established Monster Hunter fan, right? But I have been talking to everybody I can about it. And it is a good game. I know it's not for everybody. So, take it with a grain of salt, look into it, see if you like it. But they are polished, good games. They do what they're intended. They have the right focus on what they're trying to accomplish as far as their goal for the game, their design, their implementations, everything is there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, building customer loyalty is kind of antithetical to making a quick buck.
Yeah.
There's two completely different approaches, which is unfortunate because, like you said, yeah, there's certain things, certain developers where if they put out a game, you're like, okay, I want to play this, and then unfortunately, the vast majority of the industry has lost that sort of credibility if they ever had it. So it seems like their only option is, well, we're just going to go the whatever makes us the most money the fastest.
Right. Yeah. It's, longtime gamer over here is sadly disappointed with a lot of it. And so,
Which is really sad too, because you look at history, the whole video game crash, that like industry crash that is kind of the reason for Nintendo's dominance today, happened because of just a glut of poor quality games.
yep. Atari, they licensed the crap out of their stuff, and they didn't even care as long as they were selling them. It was one in like 100 games that was decent and worked the way it was supposed to and stuff like that back in the early days, right? And same with arcade ones. Like, even there has been a video game recession the last couple of years, and for the longest time, you go back 5 years, it was one of the largest growing sectors of economy in the U.S. And just like anime is, right? It really had a boom not that long ago, and so many people know and watch anime now, and it's on every streaming platform there is. But like video games the last couple of years has been somewhat in a recession, and they've let people off from different studios, and it's one of those things, and it's not necessarily those specific studios, but the industry as a whole has got that money grab, quick cash, quick buck, microtransaction type-esque feel to it. And even in larger AAA games that have it, they do have microtransactions, and even if they're tasteful and they're at the right way done and executed, like good, right? In Monster Hunter, some people see them and they're just like, dude, stop trying to get my money all the time. God of War, like, you can get cool skins. They're not super expensive. There's tons of games that have those in there, and by themselves are not bad. But you see them and you're just immediately already irritated. And you're just like, dude, stop.
You're
trying
just
to
tired
get my
of
pennies.
it,
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things. And it's like you said, it's kind of put a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it sucks. It really does suck. Which is why you got, experienced gamers like me. Not best gamer, don't get that wrong. Experienced gamers. We know what we're looking for. And like I said, I'll pay whatever it is for what I want, as long as they continue to deliver quality games.
Yeah, I haven't really stayed current with games as a whole for a few years now, and I've basically just been sort of seeing the way that the industry is going. I've sort of retreated back to, just enjoying the games that I used to enjoy as a child, retro games. Like being able to emulate stuff has been such a joy, because not only can I relive stuff I played as a kid, but I can also go back and experience things that I never had a chance to before. Like I recently hacked my little SNES Classic console, and I put quite a few different games on it, and some of them like that were old, but I just never got a chance to experience them, and now I am, like Final Fantasy VII and what's that, Valkyrie Chronicles?
Yep. Those are good games, and like I've beaten 7 3-4 times, and I will say, as a kid rushing through the game and just trying to grind and level and wipe everything out, not really paying attention to the story, like even as an adult, you see those with a wider lens, so to speak. You get some more of the dialogue and the humor that's supposed to be implemented, and you see things you didn't see, or you notice things and you're like, oh, well, what's that? And you go over and it starts a little side quest. Like, those have replay value, and that's a lot of what is missing from today's stuff, because they want your attention now, and then they don't care if you move on because you've already spent the money.
Yeah, like I've played Super Mario RPG like
I want to buy the remastered version
yeah,
so bad.
a billion times already. And if I owned a Switch, yeah, I would have bought that the remastered version the day it came out.
You're making me. The new Paper Mario looks dope too. I'm not gonna lie. It looks.
Oh, I haven't looked into that yet.
There's the new Paper Mario. I almost like 2-3 weeks ago, I was like, which one do I really want? And I sat there and I was like, I don't need to spend any money. So I talked myself out of it, but there was like 3 days. I'm like, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger and buy one of these because they both look great. I had to adult a little bit. But they're just games, man. They're cool and depressing all at the same time because you see stuff like this going on. We've gotten a little dark with our conversation because we went from like cool games to like different variety of things, and we've kind of harped on this microtransaction and ruining of the games through different methods. But games are cool, and you just got to pay attention and be mindful and try not to feed into those microtransactions, because we as the user have the ultimate power. We don't feed into it, and they're not going to see that it's worth the efforts. Pull back a bit, if not find a new way to try and loop us in. But hopefully we can moderate that a little bit by showing some self-control.
Yeah, seriously. Being a responsible consumer in this day and age is much more important than it ever was. Hopefully the way things have been going with the industry managed to sort of wake people up. And it's like, oh, we've just been mindlessly feeding these companies year after year after year, and we need to stop doing that.
Yeah, true story. But definitely support the developers and stuff and companies that you do support that really put in the time and effort. I personally own Skyrim on PS3, on PS4, on PC, on PS5. I have bought all those because Skyrim is a damn good game. And even as broken as Bethesda's engine is, it makes for really good fun.
Yeah, it's Skyrim was one of those things. It's like the game was just so good. It's like you didn't care about all the game-breaking bugs.
They were entertaining.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones is some dude just playing like Skyrim, like he was like, doing a YouTube thing, and he was just playing it on YouTube. And he like killed a saber cat and then watched it just float into the air and just disappear into the clouds. And then someone grabbed that clip and then synced it to, I think the music was from like Forrest Gump. It was just this really kind of like angelic sort of like soundtrack. And you just see this like saber cat just like, and then just take off into the sky, and the music is just like na na na. It's so funny.
But you know what I mean? Like support those type of companies. And I know Microsoft owns Bethesda now, so we'll see how that continues to turn out.
Yeah, but Bethesda's been dropping the ball as of late.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like I owned Oblivion on PC, and then I bought it for my 360. You know what I mean? Like there are games that are worth. I have Rise on my Switch, and I have Rise on the PlayStation. Like I have Worlds on my PC. I have Monster Hunter Worlds on my PlayStation. You make good enough games, at least for me and not everybody. I will buy it for multiple different, especially since not everything still at this day and age isn't crossplay.
Mm-hmm.
I will buy it for different systems to play with different friends. Like,
Yeah.
but it's because they're good games. I would not spend that money on a crappy game.
Yeah, like even as much as I'm not really a super hardcore gamer, I mean, even I was impressed enough with the Master Chief Collection that I bought it both on Xbox and I bought it on Steam just so I could, play it with multiple people
But
when
we only play 1, 2, 3.
you know,
But no, it's one of those things, man. Support those developers that are putting in the efforts
and they're still out there.
yeah.
It's unfortunately they're just a minority of the industry now.
Yeah.
But they're still out there.
It's like Rockstar, man. You don't hear crap from them until they start leaking stuff 5 years before, but it is the most minuscule amount of details to get you hyped. And they just dropped the game. And, they were one of the first people to pull out of E3. And I think that was part of the problem why it died is you have such a heavy hitter dropping out. But like, Rockstar can do no wrong, essentially, in the games industry. I mean, they're lewd, they're crude, they beat to their own damn drum, and it doesn't matter what game they put. It doesn't matter what kind of bugs they have. Yes, people were upset about the trilogy remastered stuff and the bugs in there, but you can get all 3 for like $30. That's $10 a game. I don't care how pissed off you are that they didn't do more. That's not a bad deal. And I just started playing San Andreas again. Because it's on PlayStation Plus, which is essentially Game Pass for PlayStation.
Yeah.
Worth it to me. That's what I'm saying. But I bought it when I had a PS2. You know what I mean? Like, Rockstar comes out with a game and they don't compromise is the problem. I think it's Take-Two or 2K, whoever owns them. They don't meddle in their affairs. Rockstar is Rockstar. They're not their own company anymore. They have a parent company, but they operate as their own company, and that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I was never super into GTA, but I definitely did spend some time milling about in San Andreas just causing mayhem.
Right.
And even if you just do that, it's just really fun. It just feels really good to just run around in that world and do stuff,
Yeah.
So they're definitely an example of a company who's like, they've built that customer loyalty to where when they release a game, people know that it's going to be a good one.
I bought GTA 5 on PS3, on PS4. On PS5, and yes, the new gen update, the next gen update, I did buy a whole new game. Granted, it was on sale for like $20, but you know what I mean? I'd rather pay for that than GTA does have online money that you can purchase. But to me, GTA is more about the actual story, their gameplay, their mechanics, their lewdness, their insanity that they've created for their world. That's what you're playing GTA for. And I know that might be a generational thing because, like, I have a younger brother who's 12 years younger than me, and he's all about GTA Online, and I don't know if he spent any money on there, but, like, our points of view are different, right? You like those not so subtle innuendos. You go back to Vice City and the ice cream truck called Cherry Poppers, right? But that's what you're getting when you're playing GTA. Those in your face, insane, not so subtle innuendos, or the grenades and getting 4-star, 5-star wanted level and trying to blow everything up with the tank. GTA 3, you can blast yourself off the ground if you do the right cheat, right? Like the insanity level is what you're going for. But a company that's put that much time and thought, and even the broken pieces are well executed. Like, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Good developers. So,
yeah,
support them, man. Just support them, because that's the only way we're going to continue to get good things, I think. These other things, we're going to be left sad and miserable, and we're going to be like, oh, video games are trash. And unfortunately, you're going to have the 1 or 2 holdouts that can sustain themselves. And then we're going to lose an entire chunk of an industry not just in the US, but like globally as far as developers and their jobs, like it causes a bigger mess.
Yeah. But hopefully all this microtransaction insanity will definitely will wake people up, and they'll be like, "Oh, wait, I need to be more responsible about the how I vote with my dollars," because that's essentially what we're doing. When we buy something from a game developer, we are voting with our dollars,
Yeah.
saying, "I put my value into this developer."
Yes
And
to
so for
microtransactions. Here's my
yeah,
money.
exactly. So hopefully, people start to wake up and it's like, wait, I need to stop doing this, because, yeah, I definitely don't want the industry to die the way it did back in the late '80s.
Yeah. My other little brother, he said he put like $600 into Fortnite for all the different skins, and he showed me all of them. He has an ungodly amount, and I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Lord.
And out of principle, I will not buy my kids any V-Bucks for freaking Fortnite just because I don't want to waste my money on Fortnite. And don't get me wrong, Epic is the people that make them. Unreal is the engine that powers pretty much everything these days. And then it is a good engine and it's a good company. But charge me for an actual game. I don't want to give you freaking V-Buck money. Sorry, no. And you give me a cool skin like Goku. Pff, you almost had me. Almost.
Yeah, Fortnite has gone crazy with the licensing.
I heard about the Lego stuff though. The guys were playing it for a while. They were real deep into it for a minute. They were doing it's like survival craft style game where you could, harvest resources, build your camp, go hunting.
Is that the Lego Fortnite thing that I've been hearing about?
Yeah, it's like a sub game on Fortnite. I heard about that. That almost tempted me too, because I'm not gonna lie, even as an adult man, Lego games are cool. Legos are cool. So I was almost tempted, but still Fortnite.
Yeah.
Still microtransactions somewhere in there. I know it.
Yeah, definitely don't want to give that game your dollar vote.
Right.
But yeah, speaking of, I feel like we've been on the subject of the video game industry for quite a while.
It's those microtransactions, man. We're all riled up. Robble.
But kind of speaking of video games, but off on a slightly different topic. Yeah, that Borderlands movie that just came out. So that's wild, right?
Oh, okay. Here we go. Another round. Okay. So I asked a friend recently to go see a movie with me. And I was a cool kid and went and saw Deadpool last weekend, the weekend it came out. And he was like, "Oh, I heard it was trash. So how about we go see Deadpool?" And my initial thought was I already spent like $100 to go see one movie. I don't want to go see it a second time when I already know I'm going to buy it when it comes out because it was really good. But I do want to see Borderlands. It did look at least entertaining enough to want to go see it at the movie theater. And we didn't go see it because I didn't want to go see Deadpool again and spend another $100 on the movies with, popcorn, soda, tickets, etc. So on a movie I already did that for. So yeah, but it does look good. And I'm one of those people who believes in reviewing for yourself. I mean, taking any reviews, movies, games, products, taking everything that's being reviewed with a grain of salt, because I've gone and seen movies or bought games that I thought were good or fine. I mean, fine isn't always a gold standard, but it's better than what they're making it out to be. And, Steam for a while had AAA games being launched. Elden Ring, right, got review bombed the day it was released, people saying all this stuff sucked, and I bought it when it came out and I played it and I was like, oh, it's a Souls-ass game. I'm going to fucking die and I'm going to be mad the whole dang time. So, you know what I mean? But it was still that what you were trying to get, it was still good to me. I mean, and they've updated it and fixed everything as far as I know, so it's gotten better. I just hate raging that much, so I quit.
Yeah, I'm definitely not into putting that much blood, sweat, and tears into a video game.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting with
review for yourself. That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah. I definitely don't take movie reviews as a guide of whether I'm going to see it or not, like, I like to, like you said, I like to see things for myself and not just take the word of other people. But sometimes, like when I see a review for something and it kind of like confirms something that I already kind of like um, perceived about it anyway, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I probably don't want to go see this. Like with Borderlands, I'm not saying Borderlands is terrible because I haven't watched it, so I don't know.
Right.
But I did see a what is that YouTube channel? Red Letter Media did a kind of a pretty in-depth review of it, and just a lot of the stuff they were saying was like kind of like confirm some things that I felt when I saw the trailer. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can already see that this is not going to be my type of movie.
More than fine. But you did your own research. You looked into it a little bit. You made your own educated guess. You didn't be like, Timothy on YouTube says it's ass, so it must be. You know what I mean? Like that's where my problems lie. Or
yeah.
Man, I wish I wasn't just crammed full of anime and video games so I had more examples. But I know my friend Cam told me that something looked really bad. It was like a year or two ago, and whatever it was, I played it and I enjoyed it and I had a good time with it. But it's just like one of those things. He'd be like, I saw these bad reviews. It's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, oh yeah, I can see why people would be mad about this. But the rest of it, I had thoroughly enjoyed. I think it was actually Pokemon. We're gonna start a debate here. Arceus, okay, not Arceus. It's Arceus, okay. But he was like, it's broken. There's all these things, and like I played it day one. My Switch didn't melt down. Like there were videos of people like literally having it crash in their Switches, but. To be fair, I also don't know. I've seen, the people that vape through the Xbox be like, oh, look, it's burning. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what stupid stuff you've done with your console, so why am I going to take your word for it?
Yeah.
But it's like, I played it. I never had it lag. I never had it crash on me, and I bought it day one, played it that night at 9 o'clock when it let me download it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there was a few stutters here and there, but nothing game-breaking, nothing that ruined my experience overall. And it's like one of those things, it's like, just look into it yourself.
Yeah, reviews have definitely become kind of like...
Especially if it's AAA.
Yeah, it's like...
movie, games, doesn't even matter. If it's supposed to come out and it's supposed to be top tier, we're just like, no, it's not. Look, it's broken. It sucks. And it's like, okay, but then you're also the same dude on TikTok or Instagram that is like, oh, look, this stuff really works. And we all know it's ass.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird how stuff happens. And it's like reviews are almost like reviews have become kind of like an industry unto themselves.
Right.
It's so weird how like
cash grab.
Yeah, movie trailers nowadays, they like put the Rotten Tomatoes score in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's like that to me is a sign that movie reviewing has become kind of a bloated industry.
Hey, David, remember when it was the same guy for like 35 years that did all the like narration of trailers and you were always hyped because it was the same dude? He was like, Miami, 1935, Bruce Willis. And you're like, oh, this is going to be cool. And he sold it and you trusted his voice. That's what we're lacking these days.
We need the movie trailer narrator guy for this generation.
Yeah, pretty much for games, movies, products. It doesn't even matter. But you know what I mean? Like they didn't put in the reviews in there, so you weren't tainted beforehand. You got to make your own. Oh, this looks like a movie I want to see, or rom-com type Victorian, not my jam. You know what I mean? Like. You made your own educated guesses on what they showed you instead of like, oh, here's this. There's your Rotten Tomatoes scores. Here's excerpts from so-and-so's review. And then because Google and, Bing and all sorts of collecting data, they're like, here's force-fed. Here's an article. Here's a review. Here's your stuff. You get notifications of it, right? And it's like, this is getting absolute horrible reviews. It makes me just not want to listen. I want to go watch it out of spite of everybody now just because I'm also stubborn. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you have also the phenomenon of like, it's almost like companies like, I don't know if they buy reviewers or what, but you get like these movies that are critically acclaimed, and then you go see them, and it's like this is garbage. Like the one that really hit me was because, I grew up on Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I wouldn't say I'm like a Star Wars fan in terms of what Star Wars fans nowadays are. Like, I don't go out and buy the merch or anything. But, like, I have an attachment to Star Wars because it made, like, the OG trilogy made such a big impact on me when I saw it as a kid.
It's a good series.
So, until very recently, I was still excited when new Star Wars stuff was coming out. But then you had that The Last Jedi when that came out, and that movie was just utter ass. It's just so bad. But like you look at the critical reviews of it, it's like it's a masterpiece. And it's like what?
And it's see, and it can swing the other way. Don't let me be a pessimist about everything. It could totally be like, oh, this is the greatest thing since mayonnaise, and it's not. Gladiator is one of my top 10 movies of all time. Gladiator is just with Russell Crowe.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That is a masterpiece, and I will fight anybody that says otherwise, even if it's not your like jam or type of movie. Okay, it is really well directed. The cinematics, the dialogue, everything about it is top tier. Okay. Gladiator 2 has a bunch of big names, and I'm skeptical about it.
Yeah, this Gladiator 2 is, I think, I haven't heard much about it, but it seems like it's kind of a cash grab.
Yeah.
Because it's attached to what's that service, Peacock now?
Yeah.
So that tells me
that's owned by NBC and their own studios, so they're pushing their own movie.
Yeah.
The trailer doesn't look horrible, but because of all the other stigmas that have been floating around with things being force-fed to you and stuff like that, it makes me want to see it and want to like it, but in the back of my mind, I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to trust your gut on those things, because it's like,
FOMO, though, man. I don't want to miss out.
Like, I'm not necessarily into Barbies, but like when I saw the hype around the Barbie movie, I was like, oh, I just felt in my heart like, oh, this is not going to be good. And then I think I was talking to Jake, and I'd already decided that I didn't want to see it. So like, I didn't care about spoilers or anything. So I ended up happening upon spoilers and stuff before I even watched the movie, because I already decided like this doesn't look good. I'm not going to go see it. Even though if it could have been good, despite not being into Barbies, like it could have been a good, like a fun summer movie kind of a thing.
It was okay. But I will give it. It wasn't okay.
But there was there was a lot of things that it ended up doing wrong, and like I told Jake like mentioned wanting to go see it because he thought it was going to be fun. And then I was like, I don't even know why I brought it up, but I just told him some of the stuff, like some of the reservations I had about it. And, I wasn't trying to not get him to see it, but then it was like, he eventually went to go see it, and he was like, oh man, you were totally right about that.
So I did not want to go pay my imaginary $100 to go see a movie at the movie theater. It's not. It's exaggerative. But I was not going to pay that at the movie theater. But I did buy it. It was okay. The first watch through, it had my attention. There were, I have sisters. I have 6 sisters. So there was parts I was like, oh, I remember my sister had that, or you know what I mean? Like, and I watched it with my wife, and so like we just sat and watched it together. But it was worth one watch through. We tried to watch it again the second time, could not keep my attention. It was totally not worth it. But now I own it. So David, you can borrow it next.
I think I'm You know, I might watch it one of these days just
one pass through is all it needs.
Just to watch it.
Yeah, just to say you watched it.
Yeah, I pretty much know it's been spoiled for me, but you know, I'll probably watch it at some point just to see Ryan Gosling's performance as Ken, because from what I understand, like he pretty much steals the whole show. You don't think so?
The story of it gets it to that point. I think that's what he was supposed to do.
Well, I mean, more in terms of like the performance, like the acting performance.
No.
From what I understand, his acting performance kind of outshines the other cast members. But
I
didn't think that?
so. No, but
interesting.
That's my perception of it.
The scenes that I've seen,
the story. Okay, so when you watch it, and I'm gonna try and not give spoilers, it gets to the point where Ken doesn't feel accepted, and there are other Kens, and he's like has a more awareness of himself, and then him and Barbie go to the real world, and so he's kind of like, I'm trying not to ruin anything. The story takes it to that place is what I'm trying to get at, and so it, especially from a reviewer's point, and being that it ends up there through the story itself, I could understand why someone would say that or feel that way, but especially since it was supposed to be about Barbie, right? But I think the story and the dialogue and the narrative of the movie itself gets it to that point. That was part of the movie to me. I didn't feel like, oh, Ryan Gosling's a cocky little turd and he took over. It was like, that's the arc of the story.
Well, yeah.
So
I meant steals the show in terms of like his the what he put into the character as an actor. For a lot of people seemed like it was the highlight of the movie. And then as far as like what he put into his character seemed like it was kind of like the highlight of the film. And the scenes that I've seen of it led me to believe that I would feel the same way, but you know, different people feel different about it.
True. He did outshine Michael Cera though.
Yeah, I mean, that's not hard.
No. Totally. Michael Cera plays his normal character, like total like background character, stoner friend type. Even though he wasn't, it just is the vibe he gave off. He was just like, his character's name is Alan, and everyone's like, oh, hey, Alan. Like totally disinterested in him every time he pops up. Like,
yeah, he's like more or less the beta Barbie, essentially.
Yeah, the beta Ken. He is not Alpha Chad.
But yeah, the thing about that movie, which was so intriguing to me, was just the mindset that went into making it, because it was directed by what's her face, Greta Gerwig, and written by her and her husband together, and she's like one of those like wacko ultra feminist types, and you can kind of see elements of that in the movie, but then you can also see weird things that like, why'd she put this in something that's supposed to be like a fun summer movie? Like the whole opening of the movie is literally an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
So that's stuff like that is just like so bizarre to me. And then you had like, even though Greta Gerwig is like a ultra feminist, like she like ended up making the most feminist character, like from the scenes I've seen. I've actually watched quite a bit of the movie just because as I started to see more information about it, I was like kind of like, what is this movie? Like just what went into making it and all that. It was very intriguing to me for some reason. And so the scenes I've seen is like you have this certain character and she's like the most outspoken feminist, but she's like the most annoying character in the whole movie. You have like, which it's so weird because certain reviewers have actually gone, they like feel they've gotten like this epiphany that somehow Barbie was supposed to be this like subtle, like anti-feminist like manifesto sort of thing,
Fit
because
into the box type deal.
like, you had like, the feminist character was like the most annoying one. And then even though the movie was called Barbie and Barbie was the main character, you had a lot of people who felt that Ken actually kind of like just in a lot of ways stole the show. So it was like you had this certain reviewers like, oh no, it's not a feminist movie. It's actually like a men's rights movie. I'm like, that's cool that you got that out of it, but it's like, if you know anything about the director, you know that's not the case.
Yeah, it's the whole number 23 type deal happening. You can find whatever you are looking for, like you said. Like you can take any story, plot, etc., and be like, oh, see, it's about this. Here's all the points. If you're leaving out the rest of the details and not seeing the bigger picture, you're like, if that's what's resonating with you and that's what you're getting out of it, I guess that's what it's about to you. But that doesn't mean that that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And like I said, the first time I watched it, it kept my attention. I enjoyed it. It wasn't horrible like I thought it was going to be. So that was a bonus. I didn't feel like I wasted my $25 buying it on Blu-ray, but I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. It's like movies are ultimately what you're going to get out of them is what you're going to get out of them. And all the marketing hype, the reviews, it all really doesn't mean all that much.
Right.
Unfortunately, we live in a time where like it seems like that's what everybody's looking for is a good review or lots of marketing hype or something,
The other thing is people are looking for that subtext story that doesn't exist, or, YouTube can be a rabbit hole that you go down and you get lost in and all these sorts of things. But some of them are, oh, I'm going to go see Gladiator and there's this, dark side of this, the inner workings of these type of democracies and how they're corruptible and blah, blah. And it's like, no, bro, the movie was about ancient Rome and a gladiator stadium and killing things. Like that's what this was supposed to be about. Yes, you saw all those other details, but that's not what it's for. Then you get reviews that are like hyper focused on those type of things. And of course, YouTube algorithms, Google algorithms, they'll take you down these dark, deep holes. And you're just like, everything's a conspiracy and everything's supposed to be about this. And this is the subtext that you missed in this movie or this game. And it's like, back up. Just stand back and look at the bigger picture of things a little bit. Yes, you can see those subtleties. And yes, there may be those sub-stories or subtext in there somewhere for those that are looking for it or implanted on purpose to try and get people to focus on that. But like the big picture of things, and I'm not trying to say put on blinders to stuff, but like there is an overarching goal.
Yeah, some people just they can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
I remember, have you ever seen the movie Shutter Island?
Yes, okay. I have, and I thought it was okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, but me and Jake, we did one of our episodes on this podcast was we were dissecting it and another movie. And so in preparation for that, I kind of went down a little bit of a YouTube rabbit hole with that. And I found like this guy was like claiming he had like cracked the code of the movie. Okay. And it's Da Vinci like, oh, you had it wrong. Like, he was, spoiler alert, he was actually, Leonardo's character wasn't delusional at all, and the filmmakers wanted to deceive you, and the video was like an hour long going how he got to his conclusion. And then by the end of it, I was like, I'm sad that I actually sat through this, because you literally like missed major points of the movie in order to get to the conclusion that you got to.
Yeah, there was remember when Starfield was first announced and people are like, oh, here's the video for it, and you had people break down frame by frame different parts. And you're like, you could see the little bobblehead here and you could do this. And I mean, some people just go way off the mark. Not that we're guilt free, because YouTube, it's a deep dark hole. Honestly, you can find anything and everything from normal to not, and YouTube, man.
I found a lot of weird things on YouTube. And it's like weird too because sometimes you're like not looking for them and you just come across them and you would never search for this thing, but then all of a sudden you're intrigued.
Man, like the fruit guy. Remember the strange fruit guy? We were
Oh, the
watching?
fruit guy, yeah.
He was eating weird exotic fruit from around the world.
Oh my God.
YouTube, dude.
Yeah.
And it gets you sucked in too. And TikTok and all those other ones, man. Especially short video content, or what's the term they're using for those these days? Oh man, I can't even think. Just the short form content. It's mind numbing is what it is. I've been trying to avoid TikTok, not because the Communist Party is trying to get me or some stupid crap like that, right? I still get on TikTok and I'll still scroll through it for a little bit, but you get lost for 2 hours just scrolling through hundreds of thousands of stupid videos for 36 seconds at a time.
Yeah, it's truly, it just basically, it turns your brain off.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's kind of what you want.
Right.
But it's easy to overdo that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's right there at your fingertips.
But, I mean, we could switch gears a little bit. My newest YouTube rabbit holes have been documentaries. I've been actually really bad at the food guy. Kind of, I think, messed with my algorithm a little bit, and I started getting some Business Insider stuff and Why So Expensive series that they have, and it's random things like Japanese ink and how it's made and handmade woven somethings from wherever and all sorts of stuff, which has now transformed my YouTube yet again into I've been watching this guy called Real Life Lore, and he does modern conflicts, or relatively modern, like the past century or so, and how they're affecting things that are going on now, with like the Gaza Strip, the Mongolia being an independent state as it is right now, but how that could change in the near future because of it being landlocked, etc. And just got some really cool videos. And that's really been my new deep, dark rabbit hole. He's got hundreds of videos. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly, but I enjoy learning all sorts of useless stuff I will never remember or put to use. That and, Monster Hunter Wilds release videos, and they've got weapon showcase, and so my YouTube rabbit hole's kind of weird.
Yeah. That's the thing about YouTube too. It I'm one of those people who's just like, I like learning new information. So it's like YouTube just continually feeds me new information on things that I didn't know about. And it's like, is this information actually useful to me? Should I be spending my time learning this information? It's like a drug sometimes.
I'm not political, but YouTube seems to think I am, but not in a sense of Democrats, Republicans, liberal, left wings, etc. Right? It's more like a global scale. I like to know history and current events and relatively current-ish events that are leading up to soonish events that might happen. So YouTube they figured it out. Obviously, I sit and watch it for 50 minutes at a time, watching these stupid videos about the invasion of China on Taiwan and all sorts of random stuff. But he explains it really well. He has lots of data. Like, you could totally listen to it as a podcast or watch the video with all the visuals that go along with it. But man, that and Business Insider, they get me, man. I just want to learn some cool stuff, how things are made, like why they're so expensive, the volatility of the market, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? And those are geopolitical. Those are global scale political concepts, which are fascinating to me. Like, you get smaller levels, whether the country or state or city. And so I'm like, I don't care, really. I don't know. It's not big enough picture for me. Maybe that's the problem. See, that's the problem. All those subtexts in the movies, I don't care. I need big picture shit.
That's funny. Well, we have been going for almost 2 hours now.
Heck yeah.
I think we've covered quite a few topics. That's probably a good place to wrap things up.
Sorry we rambled your ears off.
So, yeah, thank you for coming out and being part of the conversation that is Snarp Fangle.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you to the audience out there on the interwebs that give us your viewership, and hopefully we can become part of your YouTube rabbit hole someday.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, anyway, thank you all for giving us your time and your viewership, and Snarp Fangle on. Bye-bye now.